Hello guys, welcome to another tutorial, and today we'll be talking about the ntfy or notify open source tool. The ntfy tool is a tool that I've been using for the past couple of months now to be able to automate alerts for various scripts that I have in my environment. ntfy sends you notifications using put and post, and these notifications can be sent directly to your cell phone or your desktop. So for example, you can set up different scripts, or if you already have a backup script that is running using cron, the ntfy can help you notify you when the backups are successfully done or if they fail. You can also use this tool to notify yourself if someone logs into an SSH server, for example, or a Windows machine. You can install ntfy on Windows, Linux, Mac, and even using Docker. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to install ntfy using Linux, specifically Ubuntu, and the steps also apply if you're installing it on Debian. Once we're done with the installation, I'm going to show you guys how to configure authentication, create new accounts, and set up your server as a whole so you can access it using HTTP and HTTPS using a valid certificate from Letsencrypt. Without wasting any more time, we're going to head straight and continue with the installation. So in order for us to be able to complete this installation, you're going to have to access your virtual machine or your Ubuntu VPS using SSH. Once that's complete, we're going to start by adding the Debian or Ubuntu repository on your virtual machine or your Ubuntu server. Once that's complete, we're going to do Once that's complete, we're going to start by running the first command, which we're going to use to create a directory, which we'll call that keyrings. All of the commands I'll be running for this tutorial are down in the description section below. So the next command we're going to run is the call command. And once that's done, we're going to use apt to install the apt transport HTTPS. And then we're going to use echo to add our Hekel Debian repository. Once that's done, then now we're going to check to make sure that our repository was successfully added and we can connect to it. And as you can see, those were added successfully. Now we're going to install the package itself. And once that installation command is done, then we're going to enable ntfy to run every time we reboot our system by using the command sudo systemctl enable ntfy, and then we're going to go ahead and start the ntfy service. So once you have that started, you can use the status to check and make sure that your ntfy server is running smoothly. And as we can see, we're running using port 80. So in this case, if we head over to a new browser and type in the IP address of our virtual machine, we should see here that we've been able to successfully install our ntfy server. At this point, we can start subscribing to new topics, and we can also head over to the command line and send a quick test notification to make sure everything is working. If we do that using the call-d followed with the message and the IP address / the topic name, if we head back over to the web interface, we can see the message was successfully sent. So now that we're done installing our ntfy server and we've made sure that it works properly and we can access it using HTTP on the browser, the next thing we're going to do is head over to a command line and set up our basic config file. So if you head over to the etc-ntfy directory and do an ls, you can see here that we have two files, the client.yml and the server.yml. The server.yml is the file that we are most concerned about. And if we open this file, We can see here that there's a whole bunch of configuration settings that we can set up to customize our ntfy environment. We can set up a base URL, which is going to be the URL that we can use to access our ntfy server externally. So the URL is essentially the host name or the A record name that you can set up on your DNS management. The next thing, we can also change the listening port for HTTP and HTTPS. And if you're doing HTTPS, you can set up the key file and cert file for the certificate. You can also do configurations such as set up an authentication file to require users to log in using a username and a password. And you can also set default access permissions. Another thing we can do is enable users to be able to sign up and create their own accounts using the web app or the web API. We can also enable login so users can log in using the web app as well. So now that we know some of the basic configurations we're going to set up today, we're going to close the config file. And before we start, we're going to go ahead and make a backup of the original configuration file. To do this, we're going to use the sudo move and we'll rename the file from server.yml to server.yml.back. So once that's done, now we're going to use nano and create a new server.yml file. Once you get that done, the basic configuration for you to get started and running your ntfy server is by setting up the base URL and the port number. So if you set up this configuration, you can let your server be and you're good to go. Notice you can change the listening port to 8080 or 8081 or any other port of your choice to use as HTTP. The base URL has to be something that you own if you're exposing this externally. In my case, we're going to do ntfy.geektogether.com. You can change that to your domain name and please make sure you have that inside of quotation marks. So once that's complete, we can save the configuration file and then we're going to go ahead and restart our ntfy server. So once we do that, if we head over back to the browser, we can see that everything is still working fine. The next thing we're going to do as part of this video is configure HTTPS so we are able to secure our communications to our ntfy server using a valid SSL certificate. You can use a self-signed certificate if you want, but as part of this video, we're going to use a Letsencrypt certificate. The SSL certificate and HTTPS access is also going to get rid of the error message we get on the left side that says we have to have HTTPS in order to get notifications. So in order for us to be able to set up HTTPS access, we need to head back into our config file or our server.yml file. So once you open the server.yml file, before we head into what I have to do here, I'm going to change this to match my certificate name. So the next thing we want to do is set up the listing-https option. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste this here so I make it quick. You can see now we have three new options. So we've set up the listing-https and we've set up the port for 443. You can change that to a custom port if that's what you want to do. And then you have to set up the key file, which is a private key, and the cert file, which is a certificate file. So you can see we're using Letsencrypt or we're using a Letsencrypt certificate and we have the path set up. You want to make sure the path, everything is inside enclosed quotation mark. So once you do that, we're going to save that. And what we're going to do here is we're going to run the command to restart our ntfy server. So once you restart, you want to make sure you check your status. So we are making sure that our ntfy server is running with no errors. If you see now, we can access over HTTPS and we can also access over HTTP. If you face any errors, if you restarted the server after putting your certificate path and you have errors, this means your ntfy service user, which is ntfy, cannot access the certificate file. I have a script which is also down in the description section below, which you can run, and it is gonna automatically set up your permissions for that file to be able to work with your ntfy. Because I noticed that if you get Letsencrypt certificate, sometimes ntfy cannot read those certificates and then you have errors. So for example, I have a script. So I'm gonna cd. I have a script which is down in the description section below. The script is called cert.sh. And all you can see in this script is the script is going to go and change the necessary permissions and the group ownership so that our ntfy user can read those certificate files. You can download this script if you're using Letsencrypt, and make sure the only changes you're making here are you're replacing the lab01.geektogether.com with your domain name or your server name, however the Letsencrypt certificate stores the files on your Linux server. So to run the script, you're just going to use sudo chmod. You give it the execution permissions followed by the script name. So once that's done, and then now you're going to automatically run the script using the command sudo, and that should take care of everything. So we're going to head back over to the browser, and now we're going to try to access our server using HTTPS. And once we do that, we get a certificate error, which is expected because we're accessing this server using the IP address instead of the host name. So if we go to advanced and we continue, you can see now that that error is gone. So we only get an error to grant our browser the permission to be able to receive notifications. And once we do that and we do allow, now we're able to access our ntfy server using HTTPS after configuring an SSL certificate. So the next thing we're going to do is set up authentication so we can secure our ntfy server so that only authorized users are able to access. So now that we're able to set up our HTTPS, we're going to try to set up authentication for our ntfy server. So head back over to the command line and we're going to use sudo to open our server.yml file. The ntfy software uses an SQLite database for authentication. So the documentation says for us to set up authentication, we have to use the default authentication file that was created during installation. So I'm just going to copy and paste the path for authentication here. So we're going to use the path or the option auth-file, and then we'll point it to the path where the user database is going to be stored, which is in varlib, ntfy, and user.db. And then we're also going to set up the default access permissions for our users. In this case, we can set up read or write, which means everyone who has access to our ntfy server has the permissions to read and write to topics. So they can create new topics and they can add or subscribe to topics, and they can send notifications using those topics. So, but in our case, we're going to set this to deny all. We only want users that we explicitly set permissions for them to be able to subscribe to topics or create topics. So once you have that set to deny all, the next thing we want to do is set up login and sign up. The login and sign up option enables users to be able to log in using the web UI interface, because if we're using authentication, we want to make sure users have a way to log in. And if you want to give users the ability to sign up, we can do that as well. So in this case, I'm going to paste this in here. As you can see, we have the enable sign up to false and we have the enable login to true. So I'm just going to put both of them to true. You can set signing up for false if you want to manually create users and you don't want anyone to subscribe to your ntfy server. Even if someone was able to sign up, note they're still going to have the default permission for deny all, which means you're still not going to be able to create or subscribe to topics. You're going to have to assign them topics or give them permissions manually in order to do so. So we're going to save this. And once you save that, you want to restart your ntfy server, head back to the web browser, refresh the web browser, and now we can see we have two options added on the right side. We have the sign in option where users can use to sign in, and then we have the sign up option where users can use to sign up. If we try to go now and subscribe to a new topic, we are required to log in. So now our ntfy server has been secured using the authentication mechanism. This way, anyone who needs access has to create an account and then get the correct permissions. So now that we've configured authentication by adding the sign in and the sign up options, I'm going to show you how you can create new users manually or assign permissions to already signed up users. So as of right now, we're going to sign up using the user John Doe or just John, and then we're going to give a password for John. Once that's set up, we have been able to sign up, and as you can see, we were also successfully signed in. If we go into our profile, we can see some options here. We've published 0 messages, and we are currently using just one browser for our access tokens. We can also delete our user account. If we try to subscribe to a new topic, as you can see, we still do not have permission to subscribe to a topic. This is because, remember, we set the default permission to deny all. So even though a user was able to successfully create their account, they still can subscribe to any topics. So what we can do here is give users or assign users to specific topics. So what we're going to do is head over back to the command line, and we're going to use the command sudo followed by ntfy user list. And once you run that command, you should see our user John right there. So as of right now, John has no permissions. We can make John the administrator if we wanted to. So to make John the administrator, you're going to run the command sudo user change role followed by the name or user account John followed by the role of the user. So in this case, we're going to call it admin. So now you can see we've changed John's role to the admin user. So if we go back to user list, you can see John has read, write, access to all topics, and they're the main admin for our ntfy server. If we head back to the browser and refresh, try to subscribe to a topic, generate the name, and subscribe, now we are able to subscribe to a topic. So now that we assigned our permission to our first user, John, and made John the administrator, I'm going to show you how you can add users using the command line tool. So to be able to add users, you're going to run the command sudo followed by ntfy user add followed by the username. So we're just going to call this user Mary. And notice when you add users from the command line, the downside to it is you have to specify the password. So it is better to just let the user sign up for their own accounts and then you assign them the permissions. So we're just going to give it the password, Mary. And if we notice, our Mary user has been created successfully. So once we're done, we can change Mary's user role and make Mary a regular user. So we're going to use the command sudo ntfy user change role followed by the username, in this case Mary, and then we're going to assign them the permission or to the group user. If you wanted to know more about user roles, you can head over to the ntfy documentation that I have in the description section below, and you can read up more about user roles. So if we do sudo ntfy user list, we can see now we have two users. We have the admin user for John, and then we have the Mary with no topic specific permissions. So if we head back over to our browser and we log out as John and try to log in as Mary, we can see we're logged in as Mary, and Mary is just a basic user. So if we head back to subscribe to a topic, Mary is not authorized to subscribe to any topic. So we can head back to the command line and give Mary access to a specific topic. So in this case, we run the command sudo ntfy access Mary. Then we'll call this topic test, and then we'll give Mary the read and write permissions for the test topic. So if we press enter, we can see we granted Mary access to the topic test, and they have the role to read and write. Head over back to our browser, go and change that to test, and we're able to subscribe to test. If Mary was trying to subscribe to any other topic, they're not going to be able to subscribe to that topic. Now we can head over to the command line and make sure that everything we have configured is working as expected. So the command we're going to run here is curl, and then before we do the -d, we're going to specify the username. So in this case is Mary, followed by the password, which is Mary, and then the message. So I'm just going to type, hey guys, and then send that. If we head back to our browser, we can see that Mary was able to successfully send that message. If someone had our topic name and they knew our ntfy address, and they tried to send the same message without knowing a user or without having a username and password, you can see they're going to get the error forbidden. This way, now we've made sure that our server is secured and only authorized users are able to access or use our ntfy server to send put and post notifications. If you noticed in the previous command we ran, we were able to input our username and password on the browser joined with the command we ran. But that will work if you're using a script. If you are not running a script and you just want to send a notification to someone or a group of people in your using your ntfy server topic or subscribe to your topic, you may not want to type your password on the browser. So you can just specify the -u and followed by the username, and then you can type the username in the browser. But like I said, if you are using a script, you will want to do the username followed by the 2 dots and then the password. And then you send the message. And as we can see, we were able to receive that as well. The next thing we're going to do to finalize our configuration is to go ahead and set up some other settings that we may need in our environment. So some of the other settings we're going to do today is set up the proxy option. So if you're going to be running this behind a proxy, which means you'll be exposing it to the internet and putting it behind a proxy server, you will have to set the proxy option to true. So once you have that set, another option you can set, or which is advisable for you to set, is the caching option. So you can set the caching option for you to be able to cache the messages for a specific duration and also attachments. To do this, you just have to set the path to var-cache.ntfy and then use the cache db. The same for attachments. You don't have to make any changes to the absolute path of the caching The only changes you can make is the duration. You can change it from 24 to 48 hours or however long you want to do that. The next thing you're going to have to configure is your attachment size limit and the expiration or the expiry date for those attachments. Once you have that done, if you are an Apple or iOS user, you want to make sure you turn on the upstream base URL. This way you can get notifications on your phone, your iPhone specifically, because Apple has a special way, weird way they take to, they have the notification set up on their phones. So if you were to use this on your phone, if you don't set up this option, then you are not going to get notifications, or they may be delayed for up to 20-30 minutes. So just turn this on, leave the link to ntfy.sh. ntfy.sh is not going to see your messages. It is just going to see the header and then route it to your server. So another option you may want to create is login, because it is very important for you to log events like errors and so forth. So you want to set up the log level. You can set it up to info or to debug, and the log format can be JSON or text file. So once you do that, you want to set up the log path. ntfy doesn't create a log path for us, unlike it does for the other ones. So we have to manually create this on our own. So once you have that all set up, before we restart our ntfy server and test it, make sure everything is working, what we're going to have to do is use the sudo touch command to create the log file that we've specified in there. And once you create that log file, you also want to use sudo to give the permissions. So ch own to ntfy and the ntfy group for our login file. And once we do that, we're going to restart the ntfy server. And then we're also going to make sure that we didn't get any errors. And as we can see, our logs are being written to that file. So if you get any errors, you want to run the command chown to, you first want to create the file and then use chown to assign permission to the file, and then restart the ntfy again. So now that we are done completely setting up our ntfy server, the next thing we can do is port forward, so we can access this remotely, and then we're going to test it on our iPhone. So if you were able to successfully port forward your router port 443 to your ntfy server, or use your reverse proxy, or if you installed this on the VPS, set up your ports correctly, and you have followed my video to set up HTTPS, now you're able to go on your browser and access your ntfy server. And as you can see now, we were successfully able to access our ntfy lab01.geektogether.com using our browser, and we have a valid SSL certificate. At this point, everything is looking good. We have the option to sign in and sign up. So now that we're done installing and configuring our ntfy server, the next thing we're going to do is make sure we test it that it works, since we're accessing it externally. So some few use cases that you can get to use this is basically use it for different commands that you run in your environment, or integrate it with scripts that you have set up. For example, backup scripts, login scripts, and so forth. To get more information about some usage examples, you can follow the documentation I have below on the ntfy, and you can see what some other people out there are running and doing with their ntfy server. So I'm going to log in here as Mary. And once I'm logged in, we're going to go to our subscribed topic, which is test. And then we'll head over to the command line. So once we head over, or once we have the command line open, then we are going to run some commands. So the first thing we can do is we can send a test message, or we can do something like an nmap scan and send the results over to our ntfy server. So I have this command pasted here. We're going to run an nmap scan to the IP address 10.100.20.31 and followed by the end sign. The first part here says that if the nmap scan is successful, we'll get a message that says nmap is successful. Remember, since we're using login, we have to set up the U option and do the username and password. The next option here says that if the nmap scan fails, then it should let us know that the nmap scan failed. So we still have the username and password. So the first sign is for success and the second is for failure. So once we do that, we're just going to press enter. And as you can see, we don't have nmap installed. So if we head over back to our test topic, it tells us that nmap failed, which is correct because we do not have nmap installed at this time. So if I was to go ahead and install nmap, and then since that's done, run that command again. Once this nmap scan completes, we're going to get a successful message onto our ntfy server telling us that the nmap scan was completed successfully. So if we head back over, we can see that nmap was successful. So the next use case I'm going to show you guys today, so I don't make the video too long, is we're going to run a basic SSH login script. This script, if anyone logs into a server, ntfy is going to send us a notification. So we're going to head over to another virtual machine I have created, and we are going to use a basic script I have to check for login and notify us. So we're going to use nano to create that script here real quick. And you can see we also have the priority set to high and then warning, and we have the username, and then we have a message that is going to tell us the user and the host that the user is logging in from. So once we save that, we want to make sure we give our script the execute permissions. And once that's done, then now we're going to open PAM and let PAM know to run that script every time a user logs on SSH or using SSH. So I have that pasted in there, and we're going to restart SSH. So once we do that, I head over to my other virtual machine. And if we try to SSH to that machine now, or that virtual machine, 20.31, enter the password. See, we were able to successfully log in. And if we head over to our ntfy server, you see we get the notification, the username that logged in, and it was successful from the IP address. So at this point, if I were to head over to my iPhone, I'm going to be able to see every single notification that we have on my iPhone as well. So this brings us to the end of this video, learning how to install and self-host your own ntfy server. If you like the video, please do not forget to hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions concerning ntfy, you can leave it down in the comment section below, or join our Geek Together hub and post a new topic asking a question of your choice. Thank you and have a great day.